right, guys, let's look at some angle relationships. This first page is kind of defining them and saying what they are. And then the second page is going to be some actual examples. So up here at the top, we got vertical angles. These are two angles that are across from each other on intersecting lines. And they are always congruent, meaning that they are equal. There we go. Can I change that? Okay. So an example of that is, here's our intersecting lines. And we've got angle 1 here and angle 2 here. See how they are across from each other? That's what I'm talking about. So angle 1 equals angle 2. And this is always. If you see two angles like this is always going to be true. So then if we've got these angles 3 and 4, they are then going to be equal. However, 2 and 4 are not equal. We'll look at those in just a second. Okay, linear pair are two angles that are adjacent and supplementary. I don't think I can fit this whole word in here. Supplementary. And my pen, guys, is bored. And they form a straight line. So we should have talked about angles and adjacent angles and supplementary first, but hey, now you're ahead. So our example of that is going to be, what did we say? They form a straight line. And we got this angle here. And we got this angle here. And remember from the other day, our angle addition said that this angle plus this angle, if it's a straight line, adds up to 180. Okay, our adjacent angles are just ones that are next to each other. Good night. And share a common side. So our example is like our linear pair or some angles that look like that. And there would be one here and 2 here. All right, our complementary angles are two angles whose sum, meaning they add up to 90 degrees. And our example is going to look like this. Remember, our 90 degrees is a right angle, and it's marked with a little square saying that it's 90 degrees. So we're going to have this angle here, angle 1, and when I add that to this angle here, angle 2, then they are going to add up to 90 degrees. All right, our supplementary angles are two angles whose sum is 180. Sum to 180. So our example, oh no, what happened? All right, sorry. Our example is exactly like the linear pair. And look, I got another line. All right. We got this angle here, so angle 1, and we have this angle here, when I add those two angles, I get a total of 180. So the whole point of this is we're going to use this knowledge to solve some problems. Kind of like this. And I realized just a second ago that I didn't put like directions on here or what you're trying to find. So in this first one, we're going to find X, and then I'll tell you what we're going to do later. Okay, so this line out here next to A, I want you to tell me what kind of relationship these two angles have. And if we notice, they are across from each other. So they are our vertical angles. And they are what? Equal. So in order to find X, solve for X, I'm going to put both of those equal to each other. So we got 2x plus 1 equals 3x minus 6. Got to get x on one side by itself. So let's move my 2x over by subtracting. Minus 2x, that leaves me with 1 equals x minus 6. Move, still trying to get x on one side by itself. We're subtracting 6, so I can add 6 to both sides, and x equals 7. That's what our problem asked us for. So that is our final answer. That's not always what our questions are going to be asking us for. So some of them may look like this, and it's going to ask us to find this angle right here. Your practice problems are going to have them all labeled. I apologize that I did not label your notes. But we don't know anything about this angle right here that's not given an equation. So we have to use everything that is given and all of our knowledge. So let's look at what relationship this angle has to any other angle. Well, we got a couple, right? So we got vertical angles here. So that means that they're equal, but we still can't find x and find our degrees just going off of that. We also know that it has a relationship with this angle, and they add up to 180. But again, since we don't know anything about that angle, we don't know if it's 2x plus 200, no, then we can't do anything with that information. So we need to first use what's given to solve for x. And we know the relationship between these two will add up to 180. Since I have information on both of these angles, I know that one is 10x minus 3, and I know that the other is 7x plus 13. I can solve for x. Okay, so let's do that. Because we know that they add up to 180. So 10x minus 3 plus 7x plus 13 equals 180. So our first thing we want to do is combine like term 17x, negative 3 plus 13, that's plus 10 equals 180. Let's keep solving till we get x by itself. So subtract out our 10 on both sides. 17x equals 170. we're multiplying by 17, so I need to divide both sides by 17. X equals 10. Okay, so we're not done because it didn't tell us to find X. It told us to find this other angle over here. We can, since we figured out earlier that these are linear pairs here, I can plug my X in here and find what this angle degrees is. Let's do that. 7 times 10 plus 13. So that is 70 plus 13, and that gives me 83. And remember, we said that vertical angles are the exact same. So this would be 83. We also could have plugged it in to this equation. So 10 times 10 minus 3. That gives me 97. And we know that our two angles here add up to 180. So I could take the 180 minus the 97, and that also gives me the 83. Okay, so you're going to be seeing a lot of these on the practice like this, where you're given a lot of information about other angles, not the one that you're solving for. So you're going to have to find the other angles and use the relationships to figure out that other angle. Okay, let's see, D, which should have been C. A is complementary to B, angle B. Okay, so let's write out that complementary angle A is complementary. So they add up to 90. And B is supplementary to C. So that means that B and C add up to 180. And we're told that A is 2x plus 6 and B is x minus 6. So I can plug in those equations for my A and my B in this first little formula that I wrote out and solve for x. So 2x plus 6 plus x minus 6 equals 90. And I'm not going to, if you do all of that, then you get x equals 30. Okay, so that's not what it's asking for. It's asking for the angle C. Well, this formula we got over here says that if we know what B is, then we can find C. Since we know what X is, I can plug X in here to find B. So let's do that. So B is 30 minus 6. So angle B is 24. 24. Now that I know that angle B is 24, then I can plug that in to this little formula we created over here and solve for C. So C is 156 degrees. 156 degrees. Okay. So let's look at the last example. 1 and 2 form a linear pair. We go back, our relationship says that our linear pair, they add up to 180. So 1 plus 2 equals 180 degrees. So we've got 4x minus 1 for angle 1 and 9x minus 14 for angle 2. And it wants us to find angle 1. So I'm just going to plug in my equations for my 1 and my 2 and solve for x plus 9x minus 14. Goodness. It's dragging a bunch down here. And I need to solve for x. X ends up being 15. My question is asking for measure of 1. So I need to plug my x in to my measure 1. So 4 times 15 minus 1. My measure of angle 1 is 59 degrees. All right, I think those are pretty straightforward when we're just plugging in and finding x and then plugging in our x to find whatever angle. This one right here is what you're going to see a little bit of today on your practice. Remember, if you're asked to find an angle and there's no information about it, you can't do anything until you find the other angles that there is information on, okay? Let me know when and if you have any questions.